Okay, shkoyach everybody. Welcome back. Today's shir, we're going to be talking about lamaisa. What are you doing on a date? And this relates to what we discussed in the previous shurim, which is what be'etzem are you looking for? The point of dating is to find a wife. For a girl, obviously, the point of dating is to find a husband. Yeah, there is definitely a toelis in this, a very important toelis. So that's what we're trying to do on a date. Many years ago, you know, when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, when I was dating. So I went through this process where I was doing things wrong, and so I switched things, and then I was doing things wrong again. And finally, I spoke to somebody who said to me, "No, you can't do that. You can't do that on a date." So I was able to work out with my vast years of experience dating. I did date for 2 years. I know some people dated a lot more than that. But in my experience, this was the method that worked the best, and it also explains why some people take a little bit longer and some people take a little bit shorter, and it also explains why some people don't know how to end the dating process, meaning they don't know how to finish the dating process, whether it's for a yes or for a no. So let's start with what you're supposed to be doing, and maybe we'll talk as we go along where mistakes happen. So first date basically means that you found out enough about her, and she found out enough about him to be able to say, yes, let's give this a try. So what are we trying to accomplish on the first date, and what should we try to stay away from on the first date? So the first thing that we're trying to accomplish on the first date is that we can get along. That's the most important thing. Unfortunately, there's some people, as I mentioned in the past, some people that the moment that they see the other one, the date is already over. Yeah, as we said, that's a big mistake, to automatically look at the person's face and say, forget it, I'm not interested, without giving them a proper chance. So we're not going to go back to that. But what we are going to talk about is giving the person a chance to express themselves, to be who they are. Now, a first date is a little bit tough for that, because it's kind of like there's a spotlight on you, right? Everybody has to act a certain way. You certainly should be showing your best. The person is coming on a first date, is making a first impression, and you should be trying to show your best. You're not trying to be a faker. You're not trying to, pretend you're somebody that you're not, but you should be the best you. Whoever the best me is, that's what I should be. So because of that, it is probably the right way to do is to dress your nicest. You don't have to dress like it's like it's your own wedding, but you should be dressed certainly in a mechubadik way. This is the way I want to represent myself. And certainly from a girl's perspective, it's always like that. She might not would be wearing the super highest heels because that might not be her. Or sometimes, the date itself is not conducive for that. But usually a first date is just a get to know you. Talk. Even have a good time, if it's possible. We're not looking for anything super, super deep on the first date. We're looking to see if the two of you can get along. That's what we're looking for. That means that although the conversation can and should maybe be moved around to topics that are of mutual interest, topics that are important to you, the atmosphere overall should be light. Certainly when it comes to certain types of personalities, it takes a little while for the personalities to come out. So many times, certainly it's true for girls that they're a little bit more shy, they're a little bit less talkative on a first date, and because of that, the guy feels like, oh my gosh, I have to keep this going, and it's like an almost. Yeah, like is she not going to say anything? Like what? A lot of times you just have to give it a chance. Lav davka, this comes with like a question answer. Asking a question on a date is not a terrible thing. But asking 20 questions on a date is a terrible thing. Because that makes it sound like you're basically just interviewing the person. What do you say about this? What do you say about this? How about that? We want to just get to know you. Now, it's very hard to like all of a sudden be friends with somebody that you met 20 minutes before, but we do have to do our best. The best way that I found to do this is to pick a topic that's of interest to you, that you thought about a little bit beforehand, that potentially the person who's sitting across from you could have something to say about, and bring that up and bring it up in you from your perspective without asking the other person, what do you think about this? Usually there's a natural type of back and forth where you bring up a topic, something that was interesting to you, something that was important to you, and you talk about it a little bit, and the other person will naturally put in their opinion on it, and from there you can go back and forth on that topic, and of course, giving the other person time to speak without interrupting that person. That's also very, very important. Some people have more difficulty in people skills, in the conversational skills, but certainly it's very, very important to give the other person a chance to talk. In fact, it's kind of like the opposite. That's exactly what you want. You want to give the other person the chance to talk so that you can hear what they have to say. Really, if we go back to the three things that we discussed, the three main points that a person needs in order to, let's say, get married. Yeah, the 3 points are attraction, personality, in terms of how the two people can get along with each other, and hashkafah. And hashkafah, as we said, has to be the first. The problem is it doesn't work like that so well. Because when you're talking about hashkafah, and that's the most important thing, and I need to know that first before we start getting into a relationship, before you start creating any form of relationship, I need to know that this is a relationship that's worthwhile. Like we said, you meet somebody, it sounds great, and you already have like chemistry in your, and you've been dating for a month, and then you find out that the person plans on living in Singapore, and because they had doing this research project, but you never talked about that because you never knew exactly what they did for a living, and like the whole thing was just not matim from the first place. So we don't want that, but you also can't jump into some heavy topics on the first date. It just doesn't go. It doesn't go because people aren't prepared for it. In order to get the information that's necessary to know if this person is shaykh for me, the person has to be relaxed. Somebody who is a more experienced dater, who has who's done this once or twice or 10 times, whatever it is before, it might be a little bit easier for them to be more comfortable, sitting next to a snowman. I can sit next to anybody and I can start talking about myself and what I'm interested in life. But certainly, girls in general are not like that, and certainly girls that just started dating are not like that. Again, there are always exceptions, but you need to give the person a chance to open up before you start asking heavy questions, because it's very possible that this could very well be matim, but you're not getting the answers because they're just not opening up. And why they're not opening up? Because why should I open up? It's uncomfortable. It's new. It is a strange person across from me, and it's the opposite gender, and I usually don't sit with somebody from the opposite gender talking about my life. So that's a little bit very awkward. So the first thing we need to do is we need to establish a little bit of calmness, a little bit of nice conversation back and forth, and almost like have a good time. Maybe it means sitting across from each other. There's a reason why many shidduch dates go to hotel lobbies or some other place where they can sit comfortably and sit opposite each other in order to talk. And that's because that's really what you're trying to get at. It might seem like it's very blah, but it's really the purpose is very conducive in that setting. First of all, it's a nice atmosphere. It's not like in a place where it's very, very loud. Second of all, it's conducive to be dressed in a nicer way, and you're opposite the other person, and you're talking. That's what you're supposed to be doing. You're not supposed to be distracted with other things, If you're going together to some kind of sporting event, or once upon a time, and I don't advocate going to movies, but something like that, so that you defeated the purpose of the date. The purpose of the date was to pay attention to each other, not to pay attention to something else. The point of the date is to learn about each other. So that's what we're trying to do. It's just at a first date you can't hit on very important topics because you're not going to get the answers anyway. Person has to be in a much more relaxed state in order to be able to open up and really be straight and clear about what's important to them. People need to feel like I'm a person first. So treat me as a person first. And then I'll talk to you about my hashkafahs. I'll talk to you about what's important to me. Now, part of that, which we left out, is attraction, which I mentioned in the past, but we'll just mention it again. Obviously, the moment that you see the person across, you can either automatically tell whether or not you're attracted to the person. But in most situations, it's not automatic. It's, okay, he or she is okay. Nothing like wow, but okay is good. Okay means that there's room to not get, let's just look at it from the boy's perspective. If he comes to a date and the girl is absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. And he's just totally blown away by it. Now that might seem like a dream situation, but it's not necessarily. The reason is because it's so boom in your face that you don't have the ability to really focus on anything else. You don't have the ability, like, this is just it. This is the most important thing. Anything else that happened on the date is not important anymore. But it is important. It is. And if you're just so blown away by one part, so then you're just going to be blinded, and eventually something will happen. Yeah. Eventually, this might end up bad. It might end up bad. Is it automatically going to end up bad? No. I'm not nixing every time a guy goes out with a gorgeous girl that all of a sudden, that's going to be terrible. Every single guy who gets engaged thinks his wife, his kala, his future wife is beautiful. Every single one. Yeah. I teach chasanim. I've yet to find a chasan who said that his wife's okay. Never. Yeah. Every single one. So Lamaisa, it's not something that has to be worried about. Well, if she's not like super gorgeous, so then I'm not going to be able to get married. It's not true. Why? Because, as we discussed also in the past, the more that the person gets to know their personality, the more the beauty comes out. It's not just about what the face looks like. What a lot of it is about who the person is. And really, when it comes to marriage, it's the whole picture. It's not one part of the picture. There are people who have very, very superficial marriages. So that's what the whole thing is based on. It doesn't really last so long, these types of marriage. And then, or they have very superficial relationships. They have very shitchy relationships, which, again, is not good for either side. So in most situations, it's not going to be like that anyway. In most situations, it's going to be, to a certain degree, okay. Okay is somewhere in the mid-range, maybe a little bit below, maybe a little bit above. But as you get to know the person, as you sit and you talk, so you really start to get a better feel also for attraction, not just for personality. There was one guy I mentioned in the past, but one guy, after the first date, there were a number of things that came up. One of them was attraction, and he said he doesn't know, whatever. I talked to him after the second date, and there were also a few things that he wanted to talk about at that point, but not attraction. So I actually asked. I said, "What happened? What happened with the attraction issue?" He's like, "It's not an issue. This is a ma'aseh shaya, a true ma'aseh." He said, "It's not an issue. I thought you, no, it's fine. The attraction is good. I don't have a problem with the attraction at all. From one day to the next." Why? It could be a lot of things. First of all, he didn't like the way she dressed on the first day, but on the second day she dressed differently. Or it could very well be that the more you get to know the person, the more really you do find them more attractive. That is very normal. It's not because I'm not just looking at the face; I'm looking at the person. this person is a special person. This person I get along with. I enjoy being around. That's really what's supposed to be happening on a first date. Now, many times on a first date, you don't feel like, wow, I really had a great time. This was amazing. A lot of times it was, you know what? We had a nice time. It was good. We spoke. It wasn't, there was nothing, we weren't trying to find every single detail of the other person's life that I want to know, what they think about this thing and what they think about that thing and how they want to raise their kids and what neighborhood they want to be in and all we just had a good time. We just schmoozed about a lot of different things, a lot of different topics. Again, not in a question answer interview type way, but I want to tell you a little bit about myself, and I'm waiting to hear what you have to say, or I want to tell you about a funny thing that happened, or a story, or something that happened in the news, and this way I'll get a feel for what your personality is. One funny story: I told you I dated a lot of girls, and there was one date. We went on a date, and a certain topic came up, and we were talking about it, and I actually got into a fight with a girl on the date. We got into a fight. I don't know if we were actually screaming at each other. No, we did not hit each other. Baruch Hashem. Yeah, it was more likely she was going to hit me than I was going to hit her. But Lamaise, it was very clear after one date that this was not shaykh. It wasn't shaykh. Most of the time, that doesn't happen. I went out with 24 girls, so it happened once. Usually, there's enough there to go out on a second date, even if we didn't really connect, when a person says, well, we really didn't really connect, there can be a lot of reasons for that. It could be because somebody had a hard time opening up, somebody had a hard time talking, somebody had a hard time expressing themselves. Was there anything good about the date? Was she pretty at all? Did you get any type of feel? Was from the things you found out about her before? Yeah, everybody said that she talks a lot, but I didn't see that on the date. She didn't talk at all. Well, okay, so now your one date experience could be enough to say, no, forget it. Or it could be, well, if everybody's saying this about her, maybe she was just nervous, and maybe she was just uncomfortable from meeting somebody new in one shot, and it just give it another chance. A lot of times the second date goes a lot better. Why? Because all of a sudden this is not a new person anymore. This is the same person who I met, whatever it was, a few days ago, and it's a little bit easier to open up. Now, coming back to a section to discuss a little bit about important things, discussing important things. You can already start on the first date to discuss things that are important. Again, in the same method that I said before, without asking straight out, point blank questions like, what do you think about the conservatives? What do you think about Republicans? What do you think of, without doing something like that, you can just start to discuss topics that are important to you in a nice, friendly type of way. And listen. You have to listen very carefully. What are the person saying and how they're saying it? What they're saying is related to hashkafah, and how they're saying it is related to personality. Sometimes a person can find that the way she laughs or the way that she talks I find that to be very, very attractive. And other times I might agree with her with everything that she's saying, but I can't stand her voice. I can't stand it. I can't stand the way that she talks. It drives me nuts. Yeah. So you might agree on one, but you're listening and the other part doesn't work. So it's very, very important. You want to hear. You want to hear what she has to say, and she wants to hear what you have to say. It's extreme. This is the point. This is the point. So by the time you get to the end of a first date, where are we holding? Where should a person be? A person should be at the end of the first date, should have enough information just to go out on a second date. You're not marrying this girl. You're not even getting engaged after one date. It should be enough information to go out on a second date. What is enough information that you need? Number one, it has to be at least a moderate level of attraction. You must have that. If you think by the end of the date, that she does not reach that level, then you don't have to go out again. Second. That's number one. some people's levels might be extremely high. Yeah, so a person has to know themselves. Is my level so high that nobody's gonna ever pass it? Yeah, there's only 5 people in the whole city that could possibly be that high, and they're all married already. So that a person has to a person has to be normal, right? So there has to be a certain, like, that's what I say. I mean, moderate. What I mean by moderate is that we don't expect that every single girl that you get set up with is on the level of being, should be, if we weren't Sanua, be, being on the cover of some magazine. So, but that's partially not normal. A lot of times the attraction comes from the Sanua, the tznius of somebody. That's a lot of where a person's beauty comes from. Lamaisa, that's number one. Number two, personality. Did we get along okay? Did you enjoy the conversation? Was it pleasant to be around? Did you feel like, I had somewhat of a good time? Was there anything positive in this interaction? If a person can say, no, it was terrible, it was horrible, mamish painful, like I got in a fight with her on a date, yeah, so that's okay. You got into a fight with her, Seder, you don't have to go out again. But if there definitely was something pleasant, there was something, you had a good time somewhat, you enjoyed certain things, so that's definitely a reason to go out on a second date. And the third is from the hashkafic perspective. If you found something in the first date, again, hashkafah is not the main focus on the first date. We'll get to the second date soon. But it's not the main focus on the first date. If things come up here and there, and they can, and you can purposely bring them up, but it should definitely not be the focus. If those things that came up were deal breakers, I'm Seder. Yeah, it came up on the first date. That's fill in the blank. Whatever it was. With me, one time, what it was, I only found it out on the second date, but if I would have found it out on the first date, then it would have been a first date deal breaker, she said, I want my kids to go to the army. I said, I don't want my kids to go to the army. Okay, that's a deal breaker. I wish I would have found that out before the first date, because then I never would have gone out in the first place. But okay, we only found that out on the second date, and so that's what it ended on the second date. But if you find something, and again, every person is their own individual. What is my deal breakers? What's very important to me? That if she says something completely different, it's just not going to work. So that is also a deal breaker. But if you don't find that, also second date. What are we doing on the second date? Second date, hopefully we accomplished what we needed to on the first date. Hopefully, a second date certainly should start off with also the same type of lightness. It should definitely start off like that. At least it should start off like that. However, we're going to now expand. We're going to go a little bit further. When a person is on a second date and already, if they feel on the second date that things are going well, I really am enjoying this, that's the time where you really need to get very good clarity on hashkafas. Why? Because we needed just to open the door. Opening the door meant that it's more relaxed, having a good time with each other. Therefore, a person can be much more open. You also have to gauge. You don't always know the person sitting across from you. How are they feeling? But a lot of times it's easy. It's not so difficult to tell whether or not the person that's across from you is having a good time or not. It's not so difficult. Maybe people are dating a little bit longer, have a little bit of more of a hush for it. They can feel it better. Lemaisa, when you're able to do that, when you're able to have a good time and relax, that's the time when you can ask questions that are much more meaningful. Really, theoretically, hashkafah should be first. Why? Because the other two, attraction and personality, get more into a person's lave and less into his mind. Hashkafas are more in the mind, less in the heart, and the other two things, personality and attraction, are less in the mind and more in the heart. The more a person feels a connection in their heart, the less they're going to use their brain. So really, they should be a complete clarity about hashkafah first, before you get into the others. However, the way we date in the Hasidic world it's very different. But the way we date is that you only find out a certain amount of information beforehand, and then you need to see for yourself, how does this go? And because the nature of people is that they are not going to open up about things that are very important to them in a way that you can truly understand them unless you first have some kind of relationship, that's why it has to be done a little bit backwards, because you're just not going to get the answers that you're looking for without already having some kind of openness. Yeah, you have to do that first, even though it's a bit dangerous, because, well, all of a sudden I can already be making some kind of emotional connection before I really know whether or not this person is matim b'chalal. Which is why we don't wait till a month after you've been dating the girl to be doing this. You have to be doing this already sometime halfway through the second date, for sure. Even on the first date, you could start talking about certain things. But certainly, if you get to a point in the second date where you feel like, hey, we're having a good time, this is nice, I'm enjoying the process, now's the time to start talking about more important issues before creating a real emotional kesher. This is good enough. We've hit a point of good enough to be able to open up to the most important things, and then you discover whether or not these things are this is really shaykh or not.